Shelley San Pedro, and I am the Practice Director of Oracle Applications with Centrilogic. Giving you a little bit of a background, I have worked with JD Edwards since the mid-90s. Dare I say it, the green screen days. My goodness, I'm aging myself. I have worked with and seen the progression of JD Edwards from XE, from World to XE to 8.10, 11, 12, 9.0, 9.1, and finally 9.2. I always say, hey, it's a small JD Edwards world, and you find yourself running into many of the same people you've worked with in the past. So it's a great community. Just to give you some background on Centrilogic, we can help you with cloud managed services and strategic projects for your JD Edwards ERP system. And we know that even with the best ERP system, extracting full value can be a challenge without the right resources and experts on your side. And that's where we come in. Our team of JDE professionals can enhance your business agility, efficiency, scalability, and availability, all while substantially reducing operational costs, both in cloud and on-premise. Centrilogic helps you realize the full value of your JDE investment with a full suite of services, including cloud services and features, managed services and upgrades and assessments, as I previously mentioned. So please visit our website at centrilogic.com and check out all the services that we offer. Now, before I introduce our speakers, I do want to say that I want to let everybody know there will be a Q&A section at the end of the presentation. Also, this is the first of a series of webinars that we will be hosting. We would appreciate all feedback, so please fill out the survey. The link will be put in the chat. So thank you in advance for that. We have an exciting presentation for all of you today. I have the pleasure and privilege of introducing our speakers. And I'm just going to mention them by alphabetical order: Chris Chapman and Lucien Metellus. Chris and Lucien are senior techno-functional analysts with our JDE practice. Both of them are devoted husbands and loving fathers. They are true JDE SME subject matter experts. They have expertise across several JD Edwards modules. Both are passionate about providing the very best service to our clients. If I could clone them, I would, multiple times over. And so without further ado, I introduce to you our speakers for today, Chris and Lucien.
Hello, everyone. As Shelley mentioned, my name is Chris Chapman, and I'm a senior business analyst with Centrilogic. I've been with Centrilogic for a span of about 8 years, 25 years within the JD Edwards space. My areas are really on the functional side, both in finance and procurement, and on the technical side in development. I've traditionally done about 50 of each role every year, and just a lifelong JDE learner. Love the product and still do 25 years later. Lucien?
Good afternoon. Well, good morning or afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Lucien Metellus. I've been with Centrilogic. Next week will actually be my 5th year with Centrilogic. I've been in the JD Edwards space since 2000, and I specialize in, like Chris Chapman, I'm a senior business analyst, and I specialize in finance, distribution, so sales to invoicing and those good things. I've learned a lot working in these spaces and look forward to the opportunity to presenting today. Also really enjoy JD Edwards. Been doing it for almost 25 years, like Chris. And there's never enough that you can't learn. And as we go through today, hopefully there'll be something new and exciting that you do pick up, and hopefully make some connections for you. And look forward to this presentation today. All right, Chris. Okay. So if you think you're ready, we can get started.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen, and let me know if you can see the presentation.
We can see it. And
okay, so agenda for today. So today we've been through introductions. This is really designed to be a practical session with respect to Orchestrator for those that are just sort of learning Orchestrator, or for those who maybe have been using Orchestrator for a while and want to maybe learn about some of the new features of Orchestrator. So we're going to go through and really describe what Orchestrator is. Next, we'll go through the building blocks of Orchestrator, what each component does, and then we'll go through some real-life examples of orchestrations in JD Edwards, things that we've seen clients request, or just things that we've done to really leverage the benefit of having Orchestrator in your system. So What is Orchestrator? For those that don't know or have never really used it, from a practical standpoint, it's really a web-based tool set that's already included with JD Edwards, standard issue in JD Edwards. It does need to be configured, meaning your CNCs do need to set it up and configure it to use, but it's essentially out of the box, available with your JDE licensing for you to use. It's a set of objects that enables you to, or enables process automation and simplifies integration with other systems. So I do a lot of work on the integration side. So integrating with FTP sites, REST APIs, databases, such as SQL database, you can integrate with SQL databases and other open API type systems. That's really where we're seeing, one of the biggest benefits of Orchestrator is it just has that ease of integrating with other systems. It enables the automation of tasks without requiring developer coding, follows Oracle's low-code or no-code philosophy. The form object is an object within Orchestrator that mirrors an end user's keystrokes. So by using this object, you can record what an end user would do in the system and have the system reuse that object to automate your task or perform your task. It comes with a recorder, much like an Excel macro recorder, that allows you to record your steps and then use those steps and modify those steps in your orchestration. Orchestrator mirrors the JDE environments. So much like having a link to a DV environment for JD Edwards, PY environment, and PD environment, you've got the same thing with Orchestrator. You've got a DV, a PY, and a PD environment for Orchestrator, and it follows the same promotional path as other JDE objects. So you use an OMW web version to collate all your objects into a project, and you promote it up from DV to PY to PD as you would any other JDE project. It's integrated with JDE objects, JDE code, and JDE UDOs, which is great because you're leveraging something that already exists in JD Edwards. It comes with a scheduler. It uses cron strings to create those schedules, so it gives you infinite flexibility with respect to how you want those schedules to run. It comes with a monitor to be able to view orchestration run successes, run times, and failures, and there's an embedded workflow module. We won't be going through the workflow module today. Maybe that's something we'll do in future sessions, but it does come with a new version or revised version of JDE workflow. Okay, next I'm going to log into the system and walk you through the components of Orchestrator. I'm going to stop sharing for a brief second. Okay, you should be able to see my JDE environment. And as I said, much like the JD Edwards normal login, you have on the Orchestrator side, you have an Orchestration Studio login with a DV login path. So I'm going to log into the DV environment. And this is essentially my starting point for Orchestrator. This is the Orchestrator Studio. To the right here, I have all the objects that make up an orchestration. So these are the building blocks of what you can do within Orchestrator. Orchestrations itself, to the left here, is really just launching the orchestrations. Orchestrations have a start and a stop. And really the idea is you build a flow that will launch a series of steps that you can organize in any way. So you can take all of these building blocks, organize them in a flow, and run them. That's what this orchestration piece does here. Workflow, like I said, we won't touch on. Notifications is technically an object itself, but you can use it without Orchestrator. And Lucien will be demonstrating that shortly, how to set up notifications. So starting from left to right, we have the form request. As I mentioned earlier, the form object will allow you to record user steps and use that in an orchestration. So if I'm building, let's say, creating an address book entry, I can do that, but then I can also grab information from, let's say, an external system that will allow you to load multiple address books at the same time. So this is just reusing a user step. And we do have an example of that today that we'll walk through, showing you how to use the recorder. Next, we have data requests. Data requests are simply accessing either JDE table or JDE business view to retrieve data. So in your workflow, you can build those steps to go in and grab data. Let's say you're looking for, let's say, all open invoices or unapproved POs. Those are things you can grab using a standard JDE table or business view. What I really like about the form requests and the data requests is if you build in advanced queries in your system and you have them shared, you can also use that in your form requests and data requests. Next, we have reports. So this is basically just running a JD Edwards report, an existing report, whether it's a standard JD report or a customized report, you can launch it from the orchestration itself. What I like about this one is you've got the ability to do dynamic data selection and dynamic processing options. So one of the examples that we've used this for is integrity reports. Let's say if I want to run all of my integrity reports for the last 6 months and the last 6 months only, I don't want to have to change that on a regular basis. So you could build an orchestration to pass the values that you want to submit to data selection and have the system automatically just run those on a dynamic basis. The other thing I like about the reports object itself is you have the ability to grab the PDF that's generated by the report and also send it through the orchestration. So either emailing it to somebody or just sending a message with a copy of the report. Watch lists, just making use of standard JDE watch lists. So for example, in an orchestration, you could have the system go out and identify, let's say, if a watch list has met its critical point. And if it has, then it can continue along the workflow. If it hasn't, then you do something else. Attachments, you can essentially leverage the full functionality that a normal user would have in JDE with respect to attachments. So you can add attachments, you can add files, you can edit text, you can delete a file. Everything that you do within attachments, you have an object in Orchestrator that will allow you to continue to do that in your workflow. Here we have connectors. There's two objects around connectors. There's connectors and there's connections. So a connection down here at the lower right will enable you to set up access to, let's say, an FTP site or a database. The connectors themselves determine what you do with that connection. So if I create a connection to an FTP site, my connector will define what I want to do with that FTP site. Do I want to place a file there? Do I want to go get a file? Do I want to open a file? Again, connectors determine what you do with the connection. Same thing with a database. What are you trying to do with a connection? I've made my connection to the database. My connector will allow me to run an SQL statement, for example, if I'm running an SQL string, or run stored procedures. That's one of the projects that we've had with other clients. They have stored procedures and they want to run them through Orchestrator. You create a connection to the database and you create a connector that will then allow you to run that stored procedure. Logic extensions, this is something new in the later versions of Orchestrator. Logic extensions, especially for developers, I did see there were some developers joining the session. It allows you to essentially use what JDE already has built in the system in terms of what you would do in event rules coding. So accessing some of the system functions, accessing all the date functions, the concatenation functions, allowing you to do text manipulation, as well as accessing business functions. You can launch that from either a connector or a logic extension. So in this version, you've got access to things that developers are already using within JDE within an object. Custom requests are things like using Java, using JRuby, using Groovy to build essentially a custom script that allows you to run code that you've developed within those products. What I really like about the custom request is if I'm using Groovy to do something that any of the other objects can't do, I'm really leveraging AI to be able to do that because the coding is just beautiful, especially for Groovy and Java. The AI will generate the code, ask what you're looking for the code, and then you can copy and paste that right into the custom request. Messages are just email messages. So again, if I've got something in my workflow that requires a message to go out to a user, this will allow you to craft the message, add an attachment, like I said before, add a report that's been run. Again, just sending messages out through the standard emailing system. Rules below are really decision points, sort of if-else type statements. If something meets a certain criteria, you want it to follow one path. If it doesn't, you want to follow another path. A cross-reference is really just a list that shows, let's say you have two different systems that are integrating. Let's say on the AP side, you've got a payment terms code in JDE and you've got a payment terms code in your other system, and you need to convert them as data moves across from one system to the other. These cross-references allow you to build that list or that lookup, so you can use them as part of your orchestration. White lists are just simple lists of data that you can have in your system, allowable values that the system can use. And then schedules, as we talked about before, allows you to build any schedule for the orchestration to run on the scheduler, and allows you to use to cron strings to build those schedules. Down below, we have another link that allows you to run orchestrations. You've got a shortcut to the JDE Enterprise 1. You've got your orchestration monitor. You've got a workflow monitor. You've got your scheduler that allows you to set up and schedule jobs. And then you also have the ability to import and export orchestrations into Orchestrator or out of Orchestrator. So if you're using another JDE instance, or I've seen some examples on the Oracle community site where somebody's giving you an example of something you can do in Orchestrator, you can download that and import that and test that. So again, that's a great feature and great functionality. So where can you launch orchestrations? Orchestrator Studio is typically the primary tool for creating and launching orchestrations. The benefit, or one of the huge benefits of Orchestrator, is the ability to use orchestrations as APIs for other systems. And so Orchestrator is a bit of an API builder tool for you to be able to create those APIs and have other systems use them as APIs for their system. So again, that's another huge component of Orchestrator, is it can be used by other systems. You can launch them in Enterprise 1 or composite pages. This may be on a later version of Orchestrator that's available. I think you could do it through Enterprise 1 pages, but composite pages is new. You can launch them from there. You can launch them from a form extension. So you can add a button to a form using a form extension. In the later version, you can add multiple buttons. So you can create 5 buttons, each individually launching orchestrations from a form extension. You can also launch them from JDE event rules. You can use the B98 org business function to launch orchestrations from a UBE or from an application. And there's also a standard application that JDE has created called P98 org, which will allow you to run orchestrations just to test them using this application. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Lucien to give you some real-life examples of what some of our clients are using Orchestrator for.
Thanks. And Chris, can you just confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So like Chris said, the power of Orchestrator is very dynamic, and we wanted to just cover some real-life scenarios with a couple of clients that we had. So let's talk about some, and I'll go more into depth about each one as we go along. But there are a lot of things that we're doing manually in the business world that Orchestrator can really help pick up for us. A perfect example is that I know that in the business space that we get a lot of PO requisition requests, and sometimes they age and get stale, and you're manually having to go over or send an email or send a phone call to an approver, a business owner, or someone in that process that's creating a fail safe, right? And so we want to do is we want to make sure that we use Orchestrator in a way. So we had a client that actually wanted to send approvers reminders about requisitions that were becoming older than a certain number of days. So 30, 60, 90 days old. And JD Edwards would actually use, we used two things. We used watch list and notifications to help generate those reminders to say, hey, by the way, click here so that you can go directly to the page and approve these orders that are awaiting your approval. That's a one great example of what you can do with Orchestrator that we'll talk about today. Another great example is deleting records from tables. So we had another client that was actually using a SQL statement to clear out payroll tables because they were building up and there was a lot of history in there that they didn't need anymore. And they would have to constantly run that SQL statement on demand. So they would have to build it, get an approval, get all these kinds of things. And so what we did was we were able to leverage the power of Orchestrator through logic extensions and help build a process that actually went in and cleared the table of any payroll that had a check control number that was provided by payroll in the various tables. So instead of running 4 or 5 SQLs, or think of some SQL statements or any updates that you have to run outside the system that affects the system every day. Or you can create a logic extension that will do that for you in JD Edwards Orchestration. And we're going to have a little bit of a talk about logic extensions. Notifications for contracts approaching the expiration date, similar to reviewing and approving requisitions. Notifications for contracts were also very important for one client. There are contracts that are out there that we're waiting, that time was kind of expiring, and we wanted to make sure that users got that. So we were able to leverage the power of notifications. After approval of an OJ order, so that's a document type, of course, as most of you know, we wanted to automatically fire off a print order in JD Edwards so that it would actually print the PO. And actually, some clients are actually using these to actually not only shoot off a PO to print, but actually using it to send email communications to those that are affected by the PO. So after you've approved the PO and you shoot it off, it can actually go directly to run to print and have an opportunity to be sent via email. And then we actually had a very specific situation where if you're using JD Edwards in multiple count distributions, meaning that you have a PO that starts off as an OR, an order requisition, and after you converted it to a PO, they had to go through a process of creating various accounting entries on the GL side. It was always the same account. It was always doing this. It was always doing the same thing, but it was very manual. So every time they approved an OR to go into an OP, go in as an order, an OP order, they would have to go in, create multiple account distribution to make sure that it was clearing the right accounts. Instead, what we did was we used the power of Orchestrator to relatively go in and do the accounting for them. Once they approved the OR to an OP, we said, click this one button. And with the power of Orchestrator, you're able to add buttons on screen so that you can automatically send things out and do different things as additions to things on screens. And we'll cover that briefly. But I want to make sure that I'll have a full understanding of this is the power of Orchestrator that you're able to do it. Now, we'll cover some rudimentary kind of examples in the things that we do today, but just think about what the power of your organization can have using orchestration to really relieve work in terms of time spent, financial commitment spent, and just making sure that things are sent timely, things are used, and duplication of work is not occurring, and also help streamline some of the work so you can focus more on acquisition and opportunities for your various businesses. So that's really what the power of orchestration can do in a real world life example. But we'll talk more about that as we go on throughout this presentation. And we really look forward to more engagement. And I'll turn it back over to Chris. And I just want to confirm that you can see my screen. So as Chris mentioned earlier, we're going to log into the development environment. And the first thing we're going to work on is a watch list with a notification. And we're doing two things at once. We're actually creating the opportunity for there to be a watch list, which is a pop-up, basically, letting you know that there's some event or activity that's required for you to look like. look at, and then there's notifications. We'll walk through some examples of notifications as we build this, but just please note that we will not be able to do an actual email notification for various reasons, but we wanted to let you know that that ability was there, and we'll show you how to set up that ability should you choose. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Tools, and I want to just go into standard JD Edwards out of Orchestration, and we're going to build our first example, and I'm going to use AP P0411, the supplier ledger inquiry, and look at the opportunity here to say, hey, what is this little button up here? This is to create a watch list. Well, first let's talk about what's on the screen. I want to make sure I'm not locked up. What we want to do is we want to create a query where we know that, and let's say, for example, we want to know every due date past 7 days, meaning that if it's more than 7 days, and it's not paid, we want an alert to let us know that, hey, we have invoices that have a due date that have not been paid that are still open on the 411 side or the AP side. So we would just put in the date, and 7 days ago, I'll say was 11/6/24. And we have a pay status not equal to P. And this is just an example. We don't, less than, not greater than. And then we'll see here, we have a whole bunch of vouchers from before in previous months that have not been paid. They're sitting in a status not equal to paid. And we want to create a report, and they're approved for payment, but we haven't committed payment to them yet. And we want to create a watch list here saying, hey, what are the invoices that are past due? But first, what we need to do is after we create the query and we understand, how can I get this to my business? We're going to create a new query and click Manage Queries. So this little funnel button here. Generally, and as we get to the query, what it'll do is it'll tell you to create a new query. And so what I've done is I have one already set up, but I'm going to walk you through how this was created. And we have a couple more that are shared. So just as a quick frame of reference, please note that what you're doing is you're actually adding field selections. So you're going to tell it what you want it to look like. So you're going to add a field selection, and you're going to say, I want a due date. So let's look up due date. And we're going to say less than, right here we have it less than this date here, but we can make it a variable. And we can say today minus 7 days. So you're actually just updating and creating a query. And we say, yes, less than today minus 7 days. Then we can add additional fields. So we can look for the pay status. And as you can see, it makes it very easy because it's in alphabetical order. So we set pay status not equal to P. And then we're going to click Save. And we're going to give it a new name. And click OK. And of course, you can have many variables. You can do it by currency code and anything else that's available to you on the screen. You can create a query for, and the query manager will help make it a permanent fixture for you. Now, there is a process to share that query, and we'll probably cover that near the end if anyone is interested during the Q&A session. But right now, this is saved to my personal station. So from there, I can create a watch list. And see this little flag here? It says Manage One View Watch List. I can create a watch list, give it a name, give it a new name, demo watch list, AP list, AP payments. And then I can say, what's the warning number? How many records do I need to get a warning? So let's say 70. And then it's critical when I get near 100 plus records with this value. And then I'm going to click Save. It's going to ask me for a name. I'm going to use the same name here. except I'm just going to say WL for watch list, but you can name it whatever standard convention naming that is comfortable for your business. And click OK. And I just wanted to show you some other examples of some other watch lists that are actually shared. So this is a similar one where we say the pay status is not equal to D, total amount open is greater than 0, and that probably would be a good addition. But these are kind of examples of what we have already set up. And you can, as I said, I was just using this as an example to show that, hey, you can have as many variables as you want in your query that you'll attach to your watch list. So now that we've created the watch list, you'll see that it starts running in the background, but it doesn't really have any, well, now it's giving me red because I have over 200 demos. So when you as a 200 records, so when you as a user log in, you can actually see, hey, this red message is indicating that I've gone beyond my record limit and I need to take some action in terms of these payments, which is a great way to address it, to address some issues that you may have. Now, the difference is we'll walk into what a notification is, and you'll get your notification list. But I wanted to just share that with you about how you have the power to set up your own queries based on any JD Edwards screen that has the query managers and watch lists to create the watch list. So let's head back to Orchestrator Studio, and let's create a notification for a watch list. So we'll go here to notifications, and what notifications basically does is it tells us, hey, I'm going to send you a communication about what's going on here. And we have one example here that we created earlier, but basically I'll walk you through the creation of a new notification. So of course, and let me start over, we would click new, the new button up here, and then we would give it a name. Demo for unpaid AP vouchers. And then we would put a description, or like I said, you can use any naming convention. I'm just going to, for simplicity purposes, just copy and paste this here. And then we're going to select what type it should be. And what we want to do is we want to create a watch list. As you can see, you have many different kinds of options. You have simple, orchestration, watch list, and very important that you run it as a subscriber. You will have to subscribe to the to the notification, because it will not go to everybody. It will go to specifically those that will subscribe to this, and we'll walk you through how that occurs. Now we don't have any notification inputs as of yet, but we have watch lists, and we're going to select the watch list that we want. We'll click on select watch list, and I'm going to select the demo one that I just created. And then we're going to put an actual message in here. So we want to actually add a message in here that says, hey, when we send a communication, I want you to know AP invoices awaiting payment. And you can put their variable language in there, variable kinds of conversations. You have all the you can put pictures in here. You have all the options available to you to deliver this communication in an effective way. But I'm going to keep it simple for now and say, greetings. The following invoices are awaiting payment. Please use the link to view. And I will just fix my spelling of awaiting. And then what's awesome about orchestrations is that what's awesome about orchestrations is when you do that, you can actually create attachments, actions, and in the actions and the data dictionary, you can look up some data dictionary values that you can add in. But the action here is we're actually going to create a link from this message to the application. So I'm going to click add. And I know my application is the P0411. Oh, sorry, wrong place. P0411. And I'm going to go back and just check which form this is. And as I hover, I can see that it's the G form. So I'm going to search for the WZ411G, which is a supplier ledger inquiry. And what I can do, because it's not just simple enough I'm going to open up application links again. It's not just simple enough to just say, hey, I just want this form. You actually have to pull the watch list itself. So I'm actually going to pull this demo AP watch list so that when the file opens, it brings in the data set that I already set the query for. And I'm going to click save just to save it. Should always constantly save, as I like to remind users all the time. And so that watch list, and I'll show you when we do the work through, you'll see that watch list. Now, the other thing that's important is that it needs to be on a schedule. Now, you can schedule it for any time. I'm going to expand scheduler. And you can select a schedule. Now, we have predefined schedules already, so I'm not going to go through the process of building one. But you can have one every 10 minutes, hourly, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And you create these, as Chris mentioned earlier, when you create your schedulers, right? So I'm going to go say every 10 minutes, just because I want to make sure that you know that we're waiting for this. So that you see the schedule here. You click save here. And we're going to test this watch list and just confirm that it's working. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the supplier ledger inquiry and go back to our name here on the menu. And you're going to see manage notifications. You're going to click on that and you're going to add my subscriptions. And that's where you add a subscription. So you want to add a subscription that you're currently not assigned to, and you click on select the one that's available to you. Oh, let me make sure I save this. Okay, and then you're going to select your notification list. So it will appear here on your notifications list. You can actually send it to your work center. It'll send a message, and like I mentioned before, if you select email, you can select it to your personal email or a group email. For example, if you want to just make sure that everyone in a team gets it, like some groups might have an AP email group that they can send it to. I'm going to put in the message heading. And then some inputs. I know it's not applicable here. And then I'll click save. And as you can see, it brought it over for me. Now, what I want to do now is I actually want to test this orchestration. And when I share it, it will go live. But there's a test button right here. As we went back to the Orchestrator Studio, we're going to click the test button. And we're going to click dispatch notifications. And we're going to click execute. And if everything goes well, it should execute. And it does take a few minutes. And it says success. So if I go to my subscriptions, let me close this. I may have to refresh my screen sometimes. I have see that red notification telling me I have a notification. It says, hey, wait a second. You have unpaid notification for unpaid open invoices. That same title that I created on the notification scheduler that I set for myself. I can actually click this arrow right here, and I'll just close this just to walk you through it. I can click this arrow right here, and it'll open it up with the query that I set already. And you can go in and see, hey, these are the items that I want to address. And you can go directly and you can have it as detailed down to specific company. You can have it go out as far as everything that you want, as I did here. But this is the power of orchestrations and notifications. You have your watch list up here. It's telling me, hey, wait a second, you've got 200 open records, and in about a couple of minutes, I should get another notification about that. But pardon me, but here's the real opportunity where you can go directly through. You don't have to log in, and when you set up email notification, you can actually have them click on the email notification, a link directly to the program that you want them to open and work through. So this is a real great opportunity for the power of Orchestrator and the power of notifications. So I hope that was useful for all of you. And like I said, we'll take more questions at the end, and there are a couple of other opportunities that we'll talk about with notifications. But I wanted to turn it over back to Chris and let him take the next step because he has some exciting opportunities as well. Chris, are you ready? Or I do need to log off. Give me 1 second.
You bet. All right, thanks, Lucien. That's awesome
And
functionality.
And I'm off. Thank you.
Okay, so next I'm going to be walking through the record. Like we said in the orchestrations, you have a process recorder that allows you to record steps directly from a form. I'm going to walk you through that and just show you a really simple, real life example how to use it. So just bear with me while I log into the environment. Okay, now we should be back at our orchestration studio. Now I've got both the JD Edwards environment and Orchestrator Studio open. I'm going to sign Lucien out and sign myself in to both. First, I'll log into the JDE environment. And I can choose any application to do this recording from. I'm going to use object reservations. It's a typical thing that people always struggle with. Somebody has a record open, a PO open, for example, and it happens to be locked, and you need to clear those object reservations. So I'm going to click on the object reservation application, and then go up to where it has my name, and use this record a process feature. Here I'm on the form, and it requires you to be on the form or at the starting position of the form in order to start it. So I'm going to click Start. Here I'm going to click Find. It's not finding any object reservations, so I'm going to go ahead and create one. Actually, I'll go ahead and stop this and discard this. I'll go ahead and create one first. I'm going to go into P4310, typical PO. Let's say, go to row detail revision and go back to object reservations, click find, and now I've got an object reservation. I'm going to go ahead and click start, click the find button, highlight all records, click delete, and click OK. And then I'm going to stop. So here I've created those steps within my form object that just walks through those steps. Click find, select all records, delete, click OK. It could be a form with multiple screens. You can use query by example. You can invoke things like option boxes or radio buttons. Really anything that a user would do within a form, you can pretty much record. Now that I've recorded it, I need to name it something so I can find it later. So I'm going to name it CL005. Form request, delete object reservations, give it a description, put in code 55, and click save. Now that's going to save this object as a form request that I will then create an orchestration from. I'm going to go ahead and close the recorder. Now, if I switch over to Orchestration Studio and I'm already logged in, it's not going to find that. I need to log out, then log back in order to find that object. So here I'm going to click on Form Requests. I'm going to do a search, CL005, and now I've got this object that I can click on and I can see what the system is doing. So again, it's just walking through those steps, clicking find, select all rows. I'm not sure why I have it twice, but I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And then it's clicking delete and then clicking OK. Again, following all those steps, I can add steps from here. As I mentioned before, if you've got you're doing something with a query by example, or if there's another button or row exit or something you need to press, you can simply add it from here. In practice, it's better to record it in sequence all at once. If you do need to add things, you can. It's just I find for just sometimes the objects will get corrupted. It's better to really record everything from scratch and add all the options that you want. So now that I have this in the system, I'm going to create an orchestration. So I'm going to go up to Manage and Create Orchestration. Actually, first I need to save it. And go to Manage, Create Orchestration. It's going to create an orchestration folder for me. Orchestrations have a start and an end, and it's just added this object. If I wanted to add more objects, I can go into design mode and continue adding objects of things that either I want to create from scratch or things that have already been created. So that's another benefit of Orchestrator, is you can leverage objects that have been created by some other users on the system. If they've created a connector already, then you don't need to recreate that. You can reuse those objects. In this instance, I'm only using this one object, and I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then I can run it from scratch. So if I go back to JD Edwards, click Find, I don't have a reservation. I'll go ahead and create one again. Now I have a reservation. I can launch it from the studio. And it's going to go ahead and do that deletion. Oh, not sure why that didn't work, but what I may have done, let's confirm. Not sure why that didn't work. Let's see what's missing, or maybe we'll start that over from scratch. Okay, let's do that again. I think that we got a timing issue here because now it's gone. Let's go back to Orchestration Studio. What I want to show you is that I've created this deletion object, but in real life, most of the time I'm looking at object reservations that are old. In other words, if somebody has created an object reservation 2 days ago, I'm fine to delete that, but I don't want to delete anything current. So in this example, I've just created something that's going to clear them all, but really I just want to clear the ones that are old. So again, as Lucien mentioned, you can take advantage of the advanced query to create a query that just says, I want to look at all object reservations that are not equal to today. So if I go back into object reservations, I've created a query that just says not today. It's a very simple query that says, give me anything that's not today's date. So I'm going to use this query in my my orchestration. Select not today and save, so that when it runs, it's not going to delete your current reservations. So I'm going to close out of here. Let's go ahead and invoke another one. Now I can see I have a reservation. When I go to launch it, it should not delete it. Okay, ran successfully. Now the object, okay, I'm not sure what's going on here. But you get the gist of it. Essentially, you can create something that will allow you to delete records based on a query. I think we've got a bit of a timing issue with respect to the studio and the actual application itself. All right, from here, we're going to send it back to Lucien, and Lucien's going to walk through a few examples of, again, real life examples that he's built for other clients.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris. All right, great. I'd like to take you back into the studio. Let me just confirm. Can you all hear me? Just want to confirm that. So we're back at the Orchestrator studio. And sorry, I wanted to walk through the process of logic extensions. And logic extensions is really a powerful tool in JD Edwards that we really that a lot of our clients are using to replace a lot of things that you used to do with SQL. So a perfect example was that we had a client that wanted to clear their payroll tables, as I talked about earlier. And we wanted to make sure that we talked specifically about they were running a SQL statement. Of course, as all of you as business and professionals know, that getting a SQL statement executed can be a laborious task. Instead of doing that through SQL, they wanted JD Edwards to do it for them on a scheduler every month with clearing of the tables of the F04, F0750, F0751, and 53. But what they did was we worked with them to create and rule, basically what logic extensions are, is rules of activities to help do that work for them. Now I'm going to just show you and then build this exact same one over so that you can see how it was built, but I wanted to kind of give you a map before we started building it. And this is the map. What it did is it would fetch from all the records from the F07350 and do an if-else statement. If it was true, then do this. If it was false, then just go to the end, right? And we're going to walk through and we're going to build this from scratch again, but I just wanted to give you a high-level look of what the final product looks like as we go through and create this. And I want to make sure that you saw the finished product first, because sometimes it can be a little confusing if you don't know what you're trying to do. But basically, you're duplicating a SQL statement where you're saying from the F07350, if there's records there, go to this table and delete those records. Else, if there are none, just go to the end. So I'm going to recreate this logic extension, and I'll do it from scratch. Clearing check records from F0750, right? And so let me click save here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to first start with what we want it to look like, right? And so first thing that we're going to do is we have our start and end, and we're going to add a table. And that table is going to be, minimize something on my screen for a second, and that table is going to be the F07350. There we go. And this is the payment file table. Sometimes I have to click it twice for it to come up. And then we see that this table is already set up, and so it's got the fetch single, which is correct. But right, you see this message, we need to map it to a valid column. And so let's begin the process of mapping it to a valid column. And so what we have here is check control number is going to be one of our variables. So we want to do an equal statement. And then so it's looking for a mapped object, and we're going to bring that over in a minute. And we're going to say payroll DAO is not mapped. So now we're going to go look for variables and different things of that nature so that we can map it. So we're looking at data structure, look at variables, and you have system literals. Those three items are where we're going to pull that check control number information from. So let me go get the check control number. Hold on one second. Actually, what I will do is, because I think I am the problem. Hold on one second. Go back in. Minimize that. And it's giving me a hard time right now. But what I can do, because we did create it earlier, is I can walk you through that. But basically, this is where you would map it. And I'll pull out the other one just to show it to you, because I'm having an issue right now with my extension. But basically here, what we did was we created the data structure from the check control number and left this value blank. And then the next thing that we did is we added the if-else statement. And the if-else statement, as you can see, is if, then do this, else do that. So what we did was if we'll go over here, and all we did was and I'll click up here, is with the check control number in the data structure, we said if the file status is equal to successful, meaning that it found some records, what we'll do is we'll push this out to here, which is the next fetch single. And all we're asking it to do here is check the check control number, execute the numeric, and then clear it. So this is all built out here from the fetch single. And if there's nothing to be found else, it will end. And just like Chris did, we can add it to an orchestration. And we're going to create an orchestration for it. And as you can see, it has the tables already set up. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure from a transformation perspective that we have the correct variables associated with it, which is the check control number. And then we can just click start. Oh, let me save this before we start running it. And from the start menu, what we can do is we can say a check control number. So what I want to do is I want to get a check control number. I don't want to clear the whole table because that might be a little bit disconcerting. So I'm going to open up Edwards and get a check control number for 1 so that we can work through there. And we're going to go to the data browser. I'm going to look at the F07350. And we're just going to pull any check control number. I'll pull 939030. And then we're going to run it. Success. So, well, there was no errors and everything else went through. So then here, oh, where did I lose it? There still may be a timing issue. I think it is. Once the timing issue clears, they'll clear this record from the table. So let's walk through that one more time. Through the logic extensions, we're able to create a statement to help fetch and delete records as needed. So in JD Edwards, that's the power of creating logic extensions. I will come back to it after our next demo just to confirm it deleted. But I wanted to talk also really quickly about adding buttons to your JD Edwards screen. I created a print PO button in the P4310 where you're just going to select a print PO. But how did it get created? So what we did here was and we created our own form extension where we added a value here of a print PO button. So you can add buttons. So I'm going to just add a button here. And what this is useful for is, so let's say there are activities that you want to do from a screen extension kind of value and different things of that nature. You can just associate an orchestration, whatever that associated orchestration is, and do it on the screen. So I can click a button. I can change the name of the button to demo. And then on this button, I can associate an orchestration. And this is the one that's currently set up, which is PO click print. And we can set it up so that and I can remove this. and I can add a new orchestration to this. And you can select the event just give me 1 second. Then you can manage, you can demo, edit this button. Here we go. I'll move this over here and click here. And then we can associate an orchestration with this event or a logic extension or notifications. And so from here, we can select the event, which is click here when button is clicked. And then we can go next and we can select the orchestration. And we have our own personal orchestrations. Like we said before, we can actually call other orchestrations that we've already done. There are a ton of orchestrations. We can say, I'm going to select print POs. Next, we're going to define the inputs. And so we're going to say the inputs are, we'll say that there are print POs from an orchestration and then click next. And we'll define the inputs, no inputs available, but we can execute before or after the event, click save, and then print POs. So what it will do is, and let me just save it, close it, and it'll run the version. The version that I ran is actually looking at POs that are still open. So if I click here, what it'll do is it'll actually start off the print PO job here on the screen. It'll be blank because this is not in the right status, but ultimately, this is what you have the power to do, is you have the power to print your purchase orders on the screen instead of going in and creating a separate job or using the row exit and to print the order. So those are some of the functionalities that you can do in terms of creating extra buttons on your screen. Sorry for messing up the screen a little bit, but ultimately, you can move things around and create a more customized screen experience for you and your users. And that'll be able to help walk you through those opportunities that you have. So things like sales orders, for example, are another great example. A lot of times you have to print sales orders or you have to do different things. You can associate an orchestration with that specific button on the screen, so that way you can execute it in real time. So those are some real opportunities that you have with purchase order printing, sales order invoice printing invoices for AP or AR right on the screen versus having to go through the process. And we use this same process for our mass account distribution that we talked about earlier, where we actually had users on the PO screen when they were working with their ORs, just click, and it went and created the accounting for them. That was a lot more complicated process, which took a little bit of time to do, so I couldn't do it today. But that's some of the power of orchestration that you have before you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think Chris has one or two more things, and then we'll open it up for questions. Chris?
Yeah, so I've got two very simple examples to show you. I'm going to go ahead and again log in. And I'll share my screen quickly. So the two examples I'm going to show you are one just using, again, orchestration and those form requests to create something that a user may need to do in several steps in one step, as opposed to having to do 3 steps to achieve the task. And then last, I'll walk you through an example of taking information from a CSV into JD Edwards. So this is something that's in a newer version of Orchestrator, the ability to just open up CSVs and bring them into JD Edwards. So again, bear with me while I share my screen. Okay, so I'm back into the Orchestrator Studio. I'll go ahead and log in. And I'm going to look at an orchestration that I've already developed. In this case, I'm adding a simple vendor record. So this orchestration is really designed for both vendors and customers. So in other words, if I'm in one particular place, I can launch an orchestration that allow me to create the customer record or the vendor record all at once. So here we have a decision point. We have our orchestrator launches. It creates an address book record, whether it's a vendor or customer. We just add the type within the orchestration. It makes the determination as to whether it's a vendor record or a customer record. If it's a vendor record, it's going to go ahead and add the vendor information on the AP side as well as add the banking data. Or if it's a customer, it's simply going to add the customer information to the system. So here's an example. I'm going to focus on the AP side. Really, this would be done in 3 steps. User log in, they create the address book, they use the form exit, they go to the vendor side, they add the payment terms, payment instrument, and then they have another click that allows them to create the banking information. Those are all steps that a user has to follow, but in creating an orchestration, we allow the user to do it all within one screen. So here, we're going to go ahead and launch the orchestration. And here in our orchestration launch screen, we list essentially all the fields that a user then needs to create. So I'm going to create a vendor record. Don't need to put in a long address. I can put in the tax ID. I'm going to make it a search type V for vendor. I'm going to give it a DBA name. Put in my address. In my city. State, zip code, I'm not sure what that is. Scroll down. Here I can add some category code information if I need to. Add a payment instrument. So this is going to be ACH. My payment terms, I'm going to say N30. And then scroll down to my banking information. So put in my transit number. My bank account number. My bank name. Okay, now here I've got all the information. I'm going to go ahead and run it. It's going to fail, and I expect it to fail because I don't have an N30 in JDE. Here, it's using the standard JDE payment terms, so it's giving me an error. It's telling me what the error is. I'm going to correct that payment term and go ahead and run it, and now it will succeed. So it's telling me it's created vendor 61364. Now I can go into JD Edwards. Go into address book. See the record exists. And again, all my information is then populated. So here's a great example where you can take that information and take something that would take a user 2 or 3 steps and do it all in one. Okay, the next example is I'll show you a very quick example of creating information using a CSV file. Actually, use a different one. Okay, so this orchestration is a simple one. It doesn't post the entries, but you can have it post. You can create the posting routine to do so. This one is simply just going and grabbing the CSV file. It's scrubbing it just to clean up the data, and then it's passing it through into the Speed Voucher creation. So if I go to my temp directory, I can see I have some data that's already set up, and let's use this one, for example. I get a CSV with a simple invoice for vendor 1001. It has all the pieces that I typically need to make an invoice, but I've got that in a CSV form. I go back to my orchestration and I launch it. I use this files option here to select my file and run it from here. So it's grabbed that file. It knows that the file has header records. It's going to go ahead and create my my invoice, and now I'll be able to see that in the system. So that was a simple example of using just one invoice, but obviously if you want to use multiple invoices, you can do that. One of the things that we've been using it for as a concept for doing testing. So as I showed you my folder, I've got examples of all the different types of invoice transactions that I would create. I want to create a US dollar one. I want to create a Canadian dollar one, a Mexican one, one that's an alternate currency, so US based company and it's Canadian invoice, or the other way around. I'm creating all my test data within a CSV, and then I can run them through the same orchestration and use them in my testing. So let's say I'm testing out a new AP process, a new file format being submitted to the bank, or let's say I've just gone through an upgrade and I want to use the system to test all those transactions. That really helps you speed up the ability to bring in data in the system with this CSV functionality. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to show. I think we'll go back to Denise with the Q&A section.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, you can add on the chat, or you can just unmute yourself. And just a friendly reminder, if anyone can also complete the survey, I'll share the link here again.
Yeah, and I encourage everyone to, if there's some suggestions on other webinars you would like to see in the future, like for example, we talked about doing the workflow one. There'd be great ideas for us to know the kind of things you're looking for and the kind of things you're looking to see JD Edwards can do. Okay, do we have any questions, please?
Not on the chat. Nobody typed anything yet. The attendees can also mute yourselves if you'd like.
I was about to say, you can unmute if you have any questions as well. We're here to answer. Are any of you currently using Orchestrator or considering expanding its use in any way?
Yeah, we're looking into using it a little bit more. At what point would the orchestrator, used to using the standard UBEs, I guess, to do the integrity checks for different business process failures? At what point do you think the orchestrator, you're just better off using UBE, or if you have to check several tables, do some logic, that kind of thing? Where would the orchestrator start? Does it become too cumbersome, I guess, to use?
I can answer and I'll turn over to Chris for any further commentary. I think it depends, right? As with anything else, how frequently you're running those integrity reports. And two, do you want those integrity reports to be immediately shot out to sent to the appropriate users so that they know what they need, that if there's an integrity issue in GL, that your finance department is very well aware of it. And you don't have, and the other thing that you can also depend on, even though it's on the scheduler, when you're running the reports, is that you don't ever have to update any of the processing options or data variables year after year, because the orchestrator will do that for you. So it depends. So I would say that it depends. I'm not going to say it's one size fits all, but I can say that there is a better opportunity for less human, I don't want to say error, but interaction to occur there. And I'll actually see if Chris has anything to add to that. Chris?
No, I think that was a great way to sum it up, Lucien. And what we see, so we have essentially developed an SOP around integrity reports, and we strongly believe that users won't run them if they have to go run them themselves. So again, using Orchestrator, email them out to individual parties or distribution lists, so they can have them right in their inbox. They can open them and view them. That goes a long way to making sure that they're actually being looked at. Now, Orchestrator doesn't look inside of the UBE itself. So you may have to build, if you're looking, let's say, for example, one of the things that we created was a list of batch jobs that have, for example, unposted batches for prior periods. So we developed that, but obviously with the different record types, you may have an AP person that has a batch to review. Well, unfortunately, you have to create some additional versions to be able to do that data selection. But once that's set up, that will automatically go out to that distribution list for those AP users to look at that. And then you can craft it up so that AP users will get their own, AR users will get their own, GL people will get their own. So there's some setup to do that. But again, it's a great way to push that out to the end users so they don't have to run themselves, and just have it, something that's easy for them just to open, identify if there's an issue, and then if not, just wait for the next batch to come through. Did that answer your question, Dave?
Yes, thank you.
And there is a question in the chat from Kylie. I'm trying to use an array of address numbers as my org input, pull benefit plans for those address numbers, and insert the array into a logic extension. My next trial and error is to put the logic extension in a separate org because it seems to have an issue iterating over both arrays.
Yeah, so I would say that is a true statement. I mean, I can't see exactly what you're doing, but we have noted that in many instances it makes sense to launch an orchestration from an orchestration to do that iteration. So I think you're on the right path there.
I did want to step in real quick, Chris. I forgot to go back, and I just wanted to share my screen real quick. We did create the delete orchestration for the check control number. So that check control number was 9030. And as you can see, it was deleted. It was just a little timed off. But I did wanted to just confirm that because I forgot to go back to it, and I apologize. But ultimately, if you're looking at the orchestration, not the orchestration, the logic command, it's the fetch, if else, and the delete. So those 3 steps is how this process works, but you can have it go as far, I've seen it go as far as 50 steps, various to do things that SQL statements do. But I didn't want to leave this call without sharing that with you, to just show that. Thank you. Are there any further questions? Anything anyone else is interested in viewing, possibly for the future? All right. If not, I will turn it back over. I believe Chelly is closing us out, Chris, or is it Denise?
Yes, I wanted to thank you everyone for attending the event. And if nobody has any further questions, we can just thank you everyone again for your time. If you can complete the survey, it would be really appreciated. And we thank Chelly and Lucien and Kristen as well for the great presentation. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, and please join us again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.